that we have interpretation available in English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese for this session, and that we will be recording it as well as live streaming it on our DGM Global Facebook page. Please also note that we have set aside some time for questions and answers at the end of the session. So any questions or comments that come up, just make note of them. I believe you can start dropping them off in the Q&A box, and if not, just keep them aside for the end of the session. But we do kindly ask that the chat box be used exclusively for any technical questions that you have for us related to interpretation or audio. So now to introduce myself. My name is Chloe Hans-Barrientos, and I am part of the dedicated grant mechanism for Indigenous peoples and local communities global project team at Conservation International. I am thrilled to welcome all of you to our first virtual training on video as a communications tool for Indigenous peoples and local communities. We are so excited to have approximately, I believe we're a little over 150 registered participants representing nearly 40 countries around the world. This is the first of a series of virtual trainings that we'll be offering on storytelling through the DGM Global Project. Future trainings that we'll have and that you can learn about through our newsletter and also dialogues will feature Indigenous and local community storytellers, as well as more of a focus on technical aspects and opportunities to use video, photography, creative writing, and other storytelling skills. The purpose of these sessions is to provide participants and specifically communities, including DGM Global Fellows that are participating in the session with practical information to tell their own stories and cover what's important to them to tell the world. Before we actually kick off, I think it's worth noting that storytelling is not something new. Indigenous storytelling has always existed for many Indigenous and local communities. Oral traditions are central to the transmission of knowledge. Communities have long passed on knowledge from generation to generation through oral traditions, including storytelling. It's a method used to teach about cultural beliefs, values, customs, rituals, ways of life, history, practices, and more. In today's first session, introductory session on video as a storytelling tool, we will hear about how new media, specifically video, provides a powerful tool for sharing stories. Before we actually jump into video, I thought, since we do have a lot of people joining that may not be familiar with the dedicated grant mechanism, can share briefly. The DGM is a global initiative that supports the participation of Indigenous peoples and local communities in the international effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, as well as promoting sustainable forest management. The DGM is financed by the Climate Investment Fund's Forest Investment Program and implemented by the World Bank in 12 countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Before starting off with our colleague, John Martin from Conservation International, we would like to share a 90-second video produced by the Instituto Socioambiental from Brazil.
Kataha niwana. Kataha ye magapehe paitinako. Amazonia. Wani kawama na nitsa. We makayaka. Karunko akawan hele. Tercha wanako kawa paramarita. Wainya kawakapi iyo. Wataka wachikure pakuwaka. Nyawa hiuka Brasil. Nyawa pakwe paka. Kametsa watupikaka vintakete iyo. Metaka dupia upi 1500 anos pia kazi. Nete panza puaza ke na kaya pikada ke pinevika. Nya wataite wa maka ke we maka ima wa neviki kakani.
Now, without further ado, I welcome John Martin, Conservations International's Director of Production and Video and Storytelling, to take it from here.
Thank you, Chloe. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know if we have a variety of time zones. Buenos dias, bom dia, bonjour. Very nice to be here with all of you. Thank you for taking the time and the interest in joining me and my colleagues at Conservation International. And I'm very happy to be part of the DGM, not just Conservation International, but I feel also I'm part of the DGM, almost like I'm part of all of you. So again, I hope all of you are well and in good health and doing wonderful things for your people, for your communities, and of course, for our planet. So that was a very beautiful video we just saw, produced in Brazil. Sharing a very, I found it very emotional picture of Indigenous people of this one community and how they have sort of adapted, over time. They're not the same as they were back in the year 1500 or before. But, there is a conception maybe of audiences or people that Indigenous people are like that, like they still live in the year 1500, yet they still maintain their traditions, their culture, their language, but they're just like all of us today for the most part, So I thought that was a really beautiful story. Certainly it touched my heart. And that's what I want to talk with you guys about today is storytelling and how we tell stories. We tell friends stories in many ways, when we see them in person, when we're with family, we tell stories on text messages, right? We all actually probably spend more time telling stories on text messages. We tell stories on Facebook, when we share a photo, when we share a little video. We're storytellers all the time. And now we have, a variety of different ways of telling stories. We can, in the old days, we can draw something on a piece of paper. We can take a picture. Nowadays, we can very easily create videos with our phone and, tell those stories. And that's what I've been doing at CI for the past almost 22 years at Conservation International. I have had the great privilege and an honor to travel to many of our field programs around the world, probably over 50 countries now, and have also been privileged to be in many Indigenous and local communities, because after all, you are our best partners. You are the stewards of nature. You're the stewards of our forests, of our coasts, of our mangroves, of our coral reefs. So it really has been an amazing experience to be at these places, to meet, such a wide range of people and understand their culture and their traditions and their language and how they live with nature and what nature means to them, and also what's at stake, right? What is the threat that they encounter in their lives, and how they need to improve, their livelihoods. And I'm talking threats like climate change, like illegal logging, oil exploration, so many different things that affect many Indigenous and local communities that live in natural ecosystems. And of course, the incredible nature that lives around these areas, the biodiversity, the animals, the birds, the mammals, the fish, even the insects who play a huge role, and the plants, the trees, all the way down to the bottom of the canopy, the medicinal plants. Everyone always understands that the forest is the world's greatest supermarket and probably the most amazing pharmacy and medical center, right? For many people. I've certainly experienced that. Cut on my
Muitas
finger,
pessoas experimentou
feeling stomach illness, and medicine man, or curandero in Spanish, or shaman, has come to my rescue and given me something he just pulled from some plant in the forest, and the next day I'm back on my feet alive. It was really remarkable. So to take all of this information and find those stories and find those really amazing characters, and create with video and photography, of course, also short videos that we can share with the rest of the world in order to achieve some sort of change, right? Some behavior change, some support, financial support, policy, government support, so many different things. So that's what I've been doing. And I don't like to call it making videos, because you can make a video nowadays. A video is just putting together a bunch of motion, right? Not stills, but you can also use stills, but motion pictures together. And then, you have a little video, but is it really a story? Or is it just a collection of, images? And that's what we aim to do. That's why I don't call my team or my program the video team or the video program, but we are the visual storytelling team. We tell visual stories. And so here's what I'm doing today, and wanted to share with you at least a brief introduction, because storytelling is very complex, especially when you're using video or visual images to tell that story, right? You have the visual part, you have the audio part, you have so many things that happen. It's like you're making this big pot, you're cooking. I always use cooking almost as an analogy. We're like chefs in the kitchen, and we have all these ingredients, and we're putting them together, and then we have to cook them slowly and taste it and make sure it's good. And ultimately, we want the person we're going to serve this dish to love it, to take it, eat it, maybe even ask for a second dish, and then take it and tell their family and tell their friends, wow, this is wonderful what I just ate. You have to come and try it. You have to taste it. I brought some with me. I want to share with you. Same thing with what we're doing in video. So it's a lot of work in crafting these stories, ultimately to have a positive outcome, to make it shareable, to make it relevant, to make it something that will achieve change, and of course, get a lot of people aware, informed, excited, behind what we're trying to tell. So again, storytelling, visual storytelling can be very complex. I think today what I'd like to do is at least give you a brief introduction into storytelling, what it is, why it's important, how it can be achieved, and some of the current transportation vehicles, if you want, the social media aspect of how we can share your story, get it out there to audiences to see it. But again, being that this is just an introduction, we're hoping that within time we can have other similar presentations like this one, maybe led by myself or other colleagues, to really go deeper into some of these different processes of creating visual stories, all the way from like what cameras to use, what angles should I have my camera, should I use a tripod, how do I record audio, how do I film interviews, all the way to when your video is finished, to get it on social media and and how you get more followers, more likes, more thumbs up, more shares. So hopefully in the future we can have more presentations like this one that, like I said, go deeper into these various processes of creating your stories with video, and then obviously getting them out to your audiences. Okay, so why video? Well, video strengthens emotional connections. Again, when we started this presentation, this first video that we watched, I shared with you immediately. I felt this emotional connection to it. There were so many things I could almost see myself in that community, doing everything that all of the people were doing, eating and fixing my hair and playing soccer and even wearing, a Brazil jersey and going fishing. And, it was something that we connected with that wasn't, I didn't feel like this is so strange. I don't have any connection to this. But the most important thing is that it caused me an emotional connection. It gave me a connection of happiness. I was very happy. There were beautiful images, there were positive images, there were hopeful images. And it also caused, a bit of concern. It made me think, what if traditions were not able to be maintained, what if languages, local languages were lost, this would be really terrible. So it really made me think a lot. And that's where empathy comes from. We all know the word sympathy, right? But empathy is when you feel a connection to something that happens, like you're walking down the street and somebody's riding their bicycle and they fall and you feel really bad. You suddenly go to help them, you help them up, you make sure they're okay. You immediately had an emotional connection with that person, and it created empathy, and you went to do something about it, right? So same thing in video and in these visual stories. You want to think about, when you're going to create your story, is my story going to be relatable to my audience? Are they going to almost see themselves in it, or see, have something that they connect with? And how am I going to create an emotional connection and especially empathy with my audience, right? Because, video doesn't just help us to inform, but also influence the audience, right? At an emotional level, and plant that message that we're trying to get. I mean, TV commercials do that very, very well. A 30-second TV commercial, we always see them on television. They inform us, they influence us, right? Sometimes they even touch us emotionally, and sometimes they make us do something, go out and buy the product, or join the cause, or be more aware about it. So an example I always like to tell people, or to sort of think about is, when you were a kid or a teenager or a college student, can you recall a video, a movie, a film, a documentary, a TV advertisement I just mentioned that made you emotional, that made you laugh, that made you cry, maybe it made you upset, made you care? So think about that, also as you're thinking about your concept of your story. How can you make your audience have a certain emotion? Laugh, cry, be angry, be upset, be positive, care so much that they'll share, care so much that they may even donate money to the cause, or call their politicians and say, I saw this on TV, we need to do something about it, right? That's how powerful video and visual storytelling is. So we still continue with why video. nowadays, I think we all do this all day long. We're on our phones, on our mobile devices, looking at YouTube, looking at Facebook, looking at Instagram. Almost everybody now has smartphones. Almost everybody is connected to the internet. It's really amazing how, the world has become this massive network. And we love video. There are funny videos about cats, videos about dogs, videos about big airplanes landing, in small airports, and just really crazy stuff. And you always want to be the one to share it with your friend, right? Because you saw it and it's, wow, it's so cool, and we almost do everything on our smartphone every day. We pay for things online, we buy things, we check our bank accounts, we connect with our family, with our friends, with our boss. We sometimes even work, on our smartphone. We do shopping. Sometimes we can pray on our phone. We can play on our phone. We do just about everything. It's become almost a part of us. And a lot of it has to do with video content, and we get hooked on it, right? So really interesting statistic. It's estimated that almost 75% of the world's population enjoys video content on mobile devices. You see it in airplanes, you see it in bus stations, you see it in cars. I mean, we're all somehow at some point during the day watching video content on our mobile device. Next time you do this, like, start from the moment you wake up and take note of how many videos and how much time you spend watching video content on your mobile devices, and I'm sure you will be pleasantly surprised. So again, why video? So now that we've established, how much we crave this content, right? Well, video content drives online traffic, right? So many experts predict that video will be the source of more than 80%. That's a huge number. More than 80% of all online traffic on the internet by the year 2022. So when you're thinking about this globally, all the traffic online is driven by video, 80% or even more. I mean, that's huge. Almost 48% of the online social media users have said that they would share video content with their network of friends if they find it engaging and useful. So this is just reinforcing what I've said before. When you find some really cool video or something really interesting that's engaging, that is somehow, can help someone, make them have a better day, or make them actually learn something or do something, that video content is shared. So this is about 48%, nearly half of all online social media users. And how do we do this? Well, we have the most popular social media channels, right? Almost everyone today is on Facebook, it's on Instagram, TikTok. Obviously, it's the new sensation. Everybody's doing TikTok videos. And YouTube. These are the most popular digital content vehicles that help us to push out, to publish, to post, and to share video stories with our followers and our audiences, and obviously hoping that those followers and audiences will then reshare with their own followers and audiences, right? There's that multiplying effect. But there's only so much audience attention to go around. I mean, sometimes when I'm on my phone scrolling through, take a break from work, or a break from, watching the soccer game, or even when I'm out going for a walk, I take my phone out and I start checking Instagram. And, sometimes you play the video, sometimes you stop halfway because it's sort of, it didn't really catch me, right? I go to the next one and the next one. Oh, this one is interesting. And I start watching it, and maybe this one makes me watch the video all the way to the end. So it really caught my attention, right? So something to keep in mind is, we're not always just, giving our entire attention to every single thing that we see online, right? We might see a video that appears on Facebook and Instagram. Usually we see the first frame of the video, just like the video we saw earlier. Let me go back to that slide. So if I'm scrolling and I find this video, all I see is this, right? This is the first frame of this video we saw earlier. But it doesn't tell me too much, right? It tells me there's this young man with a very cool haircut, and I can't tell if he's smiling, if he's laughing, if he's serious, if he's upset. We just see his eyes. Catches my attention, and makes me wonder, well, who is he and where is he from? And is this video about, is he gonna get a haircut, or what's gonna happen? So I may decide to hit play, or I may just like skip it. Well, this means nothing to me. I don't connect with it. It's kind of weird, or it's just not for me. Or it really tells me, wow, this guy looks really cool. I love his hair. I may do my hair like him, so I'm gonna see what happens. And I click. And then the story can grab me. But look how powerful even this first frame of the image is. So without getting too technical, because we can save this for another session, but on YouTube, you can, when you post a video on YouTube, you can select the frame or the thumbnail of the image for your video, meaning this is the first thing that your audience is going to see when they find your video or somebody shares it with you. So that image is very important. Think about what image you're going to choose to hook. It's like fishing, right? When you put the bait on your hook and you throw it in the water, that fish better be interested in that bait. Otherwise, you're not going to catch any fish that day, right? So let me go back to where we were. Sorry. Again, very, very important, to think about how you're going to grab your audience with even that very first frame they see. And you want to make sure that, your message is heard and the story is seen and they watch your video from beginning to end, right? So using video, again, as a tool for storytelling. Now, storytelling encompasses so many things, right? Like right now, here I am talking, and I'm a storyteller. So I'm telling you stories and you're listening to me. Storytelling could be, a painting at a museum, at an art gallery, at, painting that your uncle made and he displays in his house. A story could be a book. A story could be, let's see, any number of things. Photograph. It could be a number of words, just a poster with words, even 3 words, that could be used to tell a story and grab your attention. But a plain picture, just a still single picture with text on screen, let's say it's a poster or it's just a slide, just like this slide, that your audience has to read, doesn't exactly tell your brand story. When I'm talking about brand, I'm talking about your identity, I'm talking about yourself, I'm talking about maybe your community, I'm talking about maybe your eco lodge or your association of farmers or whatever it may be, right? But if you have just one image with some text on top of it and a logo, doesn't really say much, right? It just sort of advertises it, it just stays there. But video, on the other hand, is a much more impactful way to tell that story, right? So if you can tell the story about the Eco Lodge or the Farmers Association or the, women's, Coral Reef Patrol team, now you have something that will really drive your audience to feel that emotion and that empathy that we talked about before, right? And why? Well, video is a sensorial experience. So a plain picture with text on screen is going to maybe give you one of our senses, right? Visual. We're just going to see it and that's it. But when you have a combination of sound and visuals, that immediately captures the attention of the viewer, right? I don't know if any of you have seen virtual reality. You know, when you put the headset.
John, we lost your audio.
Oh,
There you go.
can you hear me now?
Yes, thanks.
Where did I lose, or where did you lose me?
It was just a second ago.
Okay, sorry about that. So I was talking about virtual reality, right? Why is it called virtual reality? Because virtual means almost, right? And reality is our life. So it's like almost reality. And it's so powerful that, you know, when you're here, you know, when you're looking at a video, when you're looking at the screen, you only see that rectangle. But when you're in virtual reality, you look around and you're surrounded just like you're here. If you turn around where you are, you see everything all around you, right? And then audio too. You know, I could hear audio coming from that direction, from this direction. That'll cause me to turn around and see and look. When you go to the movies, you know, you have in the movie theater, the Dolby sound surround, right? Why? Because sometimes you hear like the wind coming from this side and you hear the car driving from that side and you hear the voices over there. It really brings it almost close to real life versus just, you know, listening to stereo or not listening at all. So that creates that sensorial experience, you know, when you combine sound and visuals. And those sounds and those visuals have to be good, right? They have to be crafted well. They have to be captured well. You know, because if you have a recording of the rainforest, right? Let's say you have this beautiful shot, this beautiful video of, you know, beautiful rainforest, and the sounds are amazing of the birds and the insects and the breeze and the wind and frogs and all of this. And suddenly you hear all this like crackling, you know, because maybe the microphone got touched or something. It totally ruins that experience, right? So that's how powerful it is. This is just one little example to let you know how important all of these things are. Those details are very, very important, right? So again, having this ability to capture your story with video and audio, to customize your concept, allows your story to be told in probably the most effective and impactful way. Some of the best practices for effective video storytelling is to obviously always be authentic, right? Avoid the technical jargon, even when you're creating pieces for professional audiences. You know, it's your job, it's our job to make the complex accessible. What do I mean by this is, take for instance,
fazer que o trabalho seja
climate experts or a team of economists, you know, who are, some of them are doctorates, masters, PhDs, you know, very high positions in the in their jobs, right? And they speak very smartly. Obviously, everybody wants to be very eloquent. And when they're telling us, when they're giving us a presentation, you know, they're telling us everything in very technical language. Now, when you're making a video, and you're making a video for a general audience or even a professional audience, they already know all this information. So you don't need to be, again, so technical with your language, because you might lose them. You might lose your audience, you know. especially if you're showing beautiful images on screen. Beautiful images are very distracting. You know, your eyes are suddenly seeing, you know, maybe there's a jaguar walking across, or maybe a herd of elephants, or this beautiful aerial shot of a coral reef, you know, and it's beautiful turquoise blue water, and there's a fisherman. So you're already looking, you're already processing. And then in the meantime, the voice or the interview is telling you all this very technical information. Guess what? Your images, your mind is focused on those beautiful images. And a lot of the stuff came in from this side and came out through that side. So, but you still want to retain that information for your audience, you know, because it's important. So think about how to dilute that information to make it user-friendly. Imagine if you're going to have that same technical person explain what they're saying to a 5-year-old. How do you explain something so complex to a 5-year-old? Well, sometimes when we're watching videos, we almost become 5-year-olds. We want that information to be accessible, understood quickly, because I know there's going to be another image coming up that's also going to distract me. So very important, you know, the next point, to know your audience. You know, who are you making your visual story, your video for? Is it for a general audience? Is it for your community? Is it for a government official that you want to make a presentation and you want to, you know, change something? Is it for, you know, you're participating in a an international forum that you've been invited and you want to, you know, share with the audience there life in your community, or, you know, something really important? Make sure you always know ahead of time who is your main audience, what, you know, and how you plan to speak to them. Be succinct, right? Remember that it's called visual storytelling because it's more about showing than telling, right? More images and less talk. You can always do what I call scene setter videos. Scene setter means that it sets the scene for something, right? Say you're going to give an oral presentation to an audience, to, you know, a congregation of people, and you want to start with a video, like the video we saw earlier, right? Maybe we want to, you know, really talk about this community in Brazil. And you start your presentation just like I did today by showing that video. And suddenly it's like, wow, you really capture your audience. They've seen the images. It was short. It was to the point. Now you finish the video, you start with your slideshow like I'm doing right now, and you start talking. Maybe I'm talking too much, but remember, when you're talking about videos and visual stories, you know, it's more about showing, sharing your message, and don't talk so much. Now, stories are always more powerful. They're best told through the eyes of compelling characters, right? Characters that you connect with. These compelling characters give stories texture, right? They make the story feel strong and captivating. And ultimately, they should influence how we, as the audience, how people, right, think, how they feel, and ultimately how they'll behave. Again, last point here, all of this to create empathy, right? To connect that emotion with your audience. All right. So what's your story? Maybe you have your own personal story. You have the story of your grandparents. You have the story of your kids. You have the story of your community. You have the story of you know, your forest. You have the story of your mangroves, you know. So here's where I feel, you know, we have a variety of different ways of approaching crafting and delivering our stories, right? We have what I call personal or story-driven content, right? These are stories that are emotional, relatable. For instance, stories that are about empowering women, stories that are transformative, hopeful, they're about community action. Maybe they're cool, very cool science, discovery. So these are, this could be longer films, let's say. You have the big 90-minute, 2-hour documentary style films, right? Like what the BBC or National Geographic or, other independent filmmakers create, like David Attenborough and all these wonderful explorers and naturalists and whatnot. They not only have to be always 90 minutes, they can also be 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes. It's a story does not have to be a full-on hour and a half. But also it's very difficult to tell this kind of personal driven stories, to get that emotion, to make it relatable in 30 seconds or in 1 minute. It's just too fast, and did it really do something for me, right? So when you're thinking about telling these kinds of stories, right, when you've found your characters, those very relevant, those very charismatic characters, heroes in the story that are going to tell, our audience what's happening, think about, how long do I want this? Is it really a very strong story? Do I have all the visuals? Do I have the drama, the conflict, right? Because we all need to have in a story a bit of conflict, right? I mean, there has to be something that drives change, right? Unfortunately, there's always something bad, that little bit of, little devil, if you want, or that nemesis or that enemy in every story. There's always, the hero, and then what's going on, what is punching here, and how we're going to change this and transform it into something good, so that the story ends with a happy ending, right? Happy end to the story. So these are more sort of like let's say more fuller dishes, right? Going back to my analogy earlier about cooking, right? Now you're going to like make this big dish that you want to serve people at the table, but they also have little appetizers, right? Little snacks. So this could be little short videos that you can make for social media, for Instagram, that are 60 seconds or less, or maybe they're 90 seconds for something quick on Facebook. Because remember, the attention, right? When people are scrolling, they may not want to watch on Facebook a 15-minute film, right? They don't have time. They're on Facebook because they're just moving up and down very quickly, and they need to get to the next posting. And so, but these videos, these short, sort of appetizer videos, they can help promote that other longer video you have. Let's say you have that longer video on YouTube, but now you create a little social media post with a short, like, teaser appetizer, right, video about the big one, and you put a link to it, and you add your hashtags, and you have a message. Watch this because it's very newsworthy, it's very relevant, it's very important, and maybe that'll make people click on that YouTube video and actually say, you know what, I'm going to take aside 15 minutes now to watch this film because it catches my attention, right? So newsworthy and relevant. Think also about, what are things that are happening in your communities, the things that are happening in your surroundings that are newsworthy, that are relevant. When we've had terrible fires in the Amazon, when we've had terrible fires even in the United States and in the West Coast, in California, when we've had fires again in Australia, when there have been floods in Southeast Asia, effects of climate change, massive storms, even earthquakes, or whatever it may be. Maybe it's the announcement of a new funding mechanism to help communities, maintain, their traditions and maintain their ecosystem, and they receive some sort of, financial benefit from it. This is newsworthy, it's relevant. stories that you can create, that you can maybe, hope that the news media will see and will promote as well, right? So think about those elements as well. But always, going back to my previous slides, think about how are you going to tell your story, who the characters is, how is it emotional, how is it, going to create empathy, how is it relevant, right? And also like think about how you're going to capture your story visually, but again, that's going to be a different session to talk about all the technical stuff about cameras and all that stuff. And then impact stories. What I was saying earlier, short, shareable video content for social media. I'm going to give you guys some examples of all of these three, different types of stories, so you can see, because I'm talking too much, so I want you to actually see some of these examples, and I'm sure they'll resonate to what I'm saying. So that said, let's watch some films. Okay, so the first couple of films I want to share with you have to deal with exactly the first point, personal, story-driven, personal-driven, human-centric, if you call them stories, so here we go. Here's the first one. My apologies if I, mess up with clicking play on the videos or anything like that.
1, 2, 3. Acción.
La danza típica de Navajón, el significado es una alegría que nosotros tenemos en nuestra costumbre en matrimonios o en las mingas, y se bailaba de esta manera.
Cuando yo era tan solo una niña, se abrió, ¿no?, la carretera, que era una entrada principal hacia la comunidad. Y en eso,
construite, qui donnait accès à notre communauté. Et nous sommes
empezaron con la tala de los árboles.
Começaram a cortar as árvores.
Desde ese entonces, nosotros como comuneros ya estábamos dejando nuestras costumbres atrás. Nuestras herramientas, que eran las maderas, las plantas medicinales, palmeras, plantas maderables, frutos comestibles, ya no había. Aún todavía no sé al 100% sobre las costumbres de mi comunidad, pero eso no va a pasar con mi hija, porque sabiendo ya la importancia, le voy a inculcar valores. ¿No ves nada, Dani? No. Mamá. Ajá, se cuacha, está perdido. Se cuacha, fuertecito. Se cuacha. A ver. Se cuacha, ¿está verdad? A ver, se cuacha. Ya ves, muy bien. Yo decidí grabar a Margarita porque es una persona muy activa y más que todo porque ella es una madre ejemplar que conoce sobre nuestras costumbres y cultura.
Cuando ya ellos, los jóvenes, ya aprenden de nuestras costumbres, de nuestros que estamos enseñando, pueden seguir más allá enseñando a los futuros. Esta plantita he elegido porque es una planta viva, curativa, porque nuestros padres ancestrales también se han curado con ese cuando no había medicinas o sea que no había ni doctores ni botica, y esa era nuestra medicina que nos curaba.
En el proceso de filmación hemos aprendido mucho sobre cultivos de yuca, plantas medicinales y preparación del masato. Estamos rescatando lo que habíamos tenido en nuestro bosque y de esa manera nuestros hijos van a poder aprender de nuestra cultura. ¿Es importante el ají, Vania? Para, sí. Muy bien, para eso es esta planta. Ya está.
Y luego tú lo vas a enseñar a quién? A todos los que vienen a mi casa.
Muy
bien. Torta.
Ya.
¿Esto?
Sí, sí, esta mismo monte. Tienes que mirarlo bien cómo es el ají, cómo es sus hojas.
¿Cómo se llama, Vania? Ají.
Margarita me enseñó y yo enseñaré de la misma manera a mi hija y a los que están en mi entorno. Y los jóvenes seguirán también con nuestros pasos.
So just to share with you a quick context about this beautiful story you just saw. So this is part of a series that we created at Conservation International in my team called Women on a Mission. And each episode presents, showcases, or highlights a different woman in an Indigenous or local community who has sort of been empowered, who has taken a very important role in her community to bring about positive change. So we wanted to share those stories to motivate other women, other communities to speak up, to take their voices out, to tell their stories. Very, very important. And what was wonderful about this story is that in this community in the Alto Mayo region of Peru, this Awajún is the ethnic group, and the community is called Champuyacu. The women decided to take it on themselves to film themselves and film their stories. And they found videos on YouTube on how to film, and they taught themselves, and they even they didn't have money to buy professional, tripods, because they wanted to keep the camera nice and straight and steady instead of, moving it with their hands around. So they had the men help them build, some of the guys who were carpenters build actual tripods out of wood, with a little tripod attachment to hold their smartphone in place. So very, very creative, very driven. And in the community, they have, a small internet cafe with computers, and they were able to put together an editing program, and they taught themselves again how to edit, and they've been creating their own videos. So really, really inspiring, even for me. I've been making this. It's been my career for many, many years, but when I see a story like this, it motivates me. It touches me emotionally, right? And it inspires me. So now we're going to go across the Atlantic and over to East Africa. And I'm going to share with you guys another similar story.
My grandmother used to tell me that livestock was handed down from God. They fell from the sky and they are all on
Venez de Dieu, qui sont tombés par terre et que
men remained owning the livestock and the women were disinherited. And that's how we find that men in the society own most of the livestock, but the women don't own.
Men play the overall oversight responsibilities in the community. Also the cultural mindset.
Whether the Maasais, the Pokot, any other tribe in the pastoralist community, they will always portray the woman as a lesser as compared to the man being the stronger.
It's always been the men or the elders setting a scene for what a woman can do and what a woman can't do. And I think that narrative needs to change. A community conservancy is an area where communities take care of both their natural resources and wildlife.
The challenge is that
there are very few women playing leadership roles in the conservancies.
Out of the 12 possible positions that we have at the conservancy, the men have filled up 10 positions. Our aim is to see more women embrace and take up the leadership position.
Conservation is not a thing only for the men. Conservation is what affects us all as a society. I was the firstborn of my family, and I knew that I have no inheritance from my dad because I'm a girl, and everything should be taken by my brother. So there and then I knew that I had to focus on my career growth and find my own wealth.
I was brought up in a society where I was seeing girls getting married or getting children at the age of 15, dropping out of school. I realized I was blessed because I had a mother who had the resources to take me to school.
Life in this landscape is particularly challenging for women. Women have to go for long distances to look for water, to access firewood, sometimes to even get food. And so the responsibility of taking care of the environment around them or around their homestead or where they call home is usually on the shoulders of a woman. I feel like they are at the heart of conservation.
As we move the conservation agenda, we must make sure that as much as we have the men, we also have to have women on board. And this is because women have their own needs and the men have their own needs. And if we don't bring them on board, who will speak for them?
What I hope for the future of my community and Kenya at large is that women and men should be given an equal opportunity in terms of leadership in conservation.
I want people to know that we were not born to be in the household. Whether you are a young girl or a grown-up woman, we are all capable. My grandmother.
Okay. So 2 longer pieces. They were about in the 5 to 7 minute range. Not very, technical jargon because the stories, both of them were told through the eyes, through the testimonials of, of these women. It wasn't like there was a third person, from Europe or the United States saying, this is what, things should be, but it was them in their own voices, telling us their story, telling us what's so important, what's at stake. Many can argue that, oh, it's the men's fault, but no, I think it's not the men's fault. It's just, that's the way it has been for many, many years. And now it's time to change, right? Some traditions sometimes need to change to give others in the community, especially women, a voice and a place, especially, with all that they represent, to make the community thrive and survive. So very, very strong. Now we're going to talk about, sort of a little bit more newsworthy, and I think everything is relevant, right? But newsworthy in the sense of how we can tie stories to global events or announcements, or things that again that are worthy of news. So here's a video, this time from beautiful West Papua in Indonesia.
Idenya untuk menjalankan tim patrolinya, saya Yusinar Luasyang menggagaskan patrolinya hingga tim patroli wanita bisa berjalan.
So that story was, what, about a minute? And it was produced to be promoted during International Women's Day. Again, a story about empowerment of women in local communities, and celebrating, this important global day. So that's where, again, creating a short story to, that you can promote on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, or on your local, on your website, is works very well. You probably saw in that story that we have just a few sound bites from the interviews, testimonials from the women, and everything else was just short text on screen. So it also and subtitles. And the reason for that is, if you're looking at things on Facebook, maybe you not always have the volume on, right? So that, if you're in a bus, or you're in an airport, or you're in a restaurant, you're not going to disturb people around you with the audio. You can still play the video, and then you can still read, right, the captions and the text on screen. Unfortunately, you can't listen to the fun music track that we added to this video to make it more engaging. But that's one approach. So think about also like execution of the story. How are you going to get the message? It's not just voice, but you can also add titles to it, especially for these shorter videos. And now here I have 3 quick examples, since they're for social media, of videos that we've done. Basically what I just said, most of them are text on screen that, drive the script over beautiful images. So here's the first one. And this one takes us to South America, to the Andes Mountains in Bolivia.
Tenemos nosotros una hinchada con la vicuña, por eso nosotros queremos cuidar. Las mujeres mismas saben cortar bien la fibra, y sí, una experiencia muy bonita. En el futuro puede ser la bienestar para los jóvenes, que desde niños aprendan a cuidar a las vicuñas.
Okay, and this next one comes from the heart of the Pacific Ocean, one of my favorite places, the island of Samoa, sort of the birthplace of Polynesia. And this is a video. You guys will see it. Very quick, homemade. Just somebody took their mobile phone and filmed a message from the young generations. So here's this short video from Samoa.
It's Ocean Day! The ocean sustains us in more ways than we think. To continue having healthy ocean, we should avoid using plastics and use more sustainable options.
Throw your trash into bins.
Learn more about the ocean. It benefits us.
So there you have it. That was a really very sweet, very cute, very easy. I mean, they probably did this video in just one morning. I'm sure they probably just scripted the video, what they wanted to say, and what better way of, getting your story out than through the eyes of children, right? The next generation. I think also it's very inspiring, because when we see children tell these stories and, rally all this excitement, they almost become like role models for us adults, right? About recycling, about not throwing plastic into the ocean, about why the ocean is so important. So very, very effective, short little story that they did. And also very, I would say probably low cost. I mean, all they did is just use their smartphone and filmed it and probably edited very easily, probably on their smartphone through an app, and put some graphics on it, music, and done. Okay, and one more video. Since now TikTok has become the latest sensation, here's a video that was produced recently for TikTok from a Amazon Indigenous women gathering that took place in recent months.
Hola, mi nombre es Elibet Peredo, yo vengo de Bolivia. La paraba barba azul. Es una especie que solamente vive en el departamento del Beni. Una de sus amenazas es que la extraíamos para sacarle las plumas más largas y confeccionar estos plumajes de machetero. Y una alternativa de conservación que hemos visto en la comunidad, hemos realizado estos plumajes con material de tela.
So another really very, I would say, easy, because they took a phone and just probably conceived the story ahead of time, planned out how they wanted to tell it, filmed it vertical, obviously for TikTok, and now through TikTok you can edit, create, add effects, add music, all of these things, and then you have a video ready to share. So another great idea here. All right, we're getting close to wrapping up this morning. So we have some resources here. And I'm going to ask my colleagues, obviously, to share links of all of these various resources with all of you. But even the WEF, the World Economic Forum, has a really cool write-up on storytelling platforms and Indigenous perspectives. The People's Planet Project. We also have the Ultimate Guide to Video Storytelling, and it has examples. And then below, just getting a little bit into the technical, how to use your smartphone for capturing stories. Not everybody needs to have a professional camera or, a camera crew to be out and spend thousands of dollars, but we all have this, and at the end of the day is how you compose that image, how you hold the camera, all these little details. The quality is almost just as good, if not better. So think about that. So these links here are very handy to help you get started. 5 things to do before your shoot, and how to record professional audio on your iPhone. Because again, audio, very, very important. If you have your interview with the person, but the audio doesn't record, then what do you have? Just a face with the mouth moving. So very important. If you have the audio, you can always cover the face with photos of the forest, images of the river, but you can hear the person still. So very, very important to think about audio. And finally, what are the latest, best video editing apps that you can put in your phone to create your videos and your content. And now I think we're going to go into Q&A, questions and answers. And I hope that this has been informative for you. And it's been a real pleasure to share some perspective on video and visual storytelling with all of you.
Thank you so much, John. I have definitely learned a lot through this just introductory session on using video as a communications tool. Really helpful insights from your own experience, and then also from the really incredible productions that the visual storytelling team at CI has created. We have 15 minutes left, and we have a few questions that have come in. I did want to mention, though, before people start logging off, because I understand there are other meetings and things to get to. Everyone that has participated in the session will receive an email from us with resources. I know a question came in about some free applications on how to edit videos, or just any free resources available online. And we will be sharing those, as well as any opportunities for people to join video contests, photo contests. We really want to be able to get those opportunities out to as many people as possible, especially to amplify the voices of Indigenous peoples and local communities through these opportunities. So we have a couple questions. I don't know if Damian Fernandez would like to unmute himself and ask his question, or if you're able to unmute, then Damian, please go ahead and do so, and you can ask your question to John.
Hi, John. Can you hear me?
Hi, Damian. How are you? Yes, I can hear you.
I wasn't expecting to be called. I was just wondering if you had any tips on how to capture stories that are very complex, and maybe includes some contradictory elements. How do you capture that in a succinct way?
Can you give me an example?
Like you're telling the story of a landscape with multiple interests. It's not a simple story.
Right.
So,
I mean, yeah, oftentimes we will have very complex, let's say, themes, right? Or an overview of a project. So you have voices that are going to, tell your audience about the project. You have sort of your backup evidence, right? You have your experts, your technical people who are going to be on camera, explaining things. And then you will also have community members, who are also going to give their own testimonies about why these things are important for them, for their landscape, what benefits they bring, how they see it as something good. And you can weave all of this through a narrated script, right? Or even a host. You can have an on-camera host who goes and has these conversations with all these different people and asks them questions, what you need to try to do is try to dilute the very technical language to, you know, like I said before, almost if you were going to explain this to, you know, a 5-year-old, how do you make it digestible, right? Now, if your video is exclusively and only for a technical audience because it's part of a workshop or it's part of a, you know, closed session meeting, then, you know, by all means, you can be as technical as you want. But if you want your video to be shared, to be understood, even, you know, I would say even at a conference, you know, where you have all sorts of different pundits, you know, from economists to biologists to decision makers to policymakers, business, etc. You know, they oftentimes already they hear this language all day long. So to now sort of flood them with more technicalities, you know, can be a little too much. So think about how to explain these things in the most succinct way possible, right? You can use also infographics on screen. You can use text on screen to help bridge things together. So I think a lot of this happens in the script writing process when also when you're doing the interviews, when you're interviewing people, the kinds of questions and how the person making the interview sort of leads the responder to, you know, or helps them to sort of, okay, can you tell me that now, but, you know, a little bit shorter or a little bit tighter. So it's a lot of editorial, if you know what I mean. But that it's challenging is not challenging. It's just how you approach the narrative.
Thanks, John. We have some more questions trickling in, so let's see if we can get to some of them. Linda Lingua from South Africa was asking if there are you have any suggestions on free and easy video editing apps and tools. We may have already gotten to this in saying that we'll share some resources. Is there something you'd want to make note of though beforehand?
Yeah, no, good question. I think you will find all of that in the resources section that you know, as we finish the presentation today. Look, every day, almost every month, there's a new app that shows up that's better than the last one, because now everybody wants to edit video on their phone. I myself, I apologize for my lack of knowledge in this field because I work in, you know, in a studio and I use only one platform for editing. It's called Adobe Premiere Pro, and that's on my desktop and on my laptop, and I can take it with me everywhere. I don't edit on my phone because this is what I use. So I can't give you an answer, but definitely in those resources, I think there is a listing of all the most popular smartphone editing apps. And, you know, just do your research on Google and on YouTube. There's lots of things with reviews. Many of these are free. Definitely there's so many resources out there, but I hope the ones we're sharing with you will be useful.
Thanks, John. Yes, we'll share some, Linda, that are easy to use. We have an anonymous question. Someone asked, we are working on Indigenous videos in Brazil, and we have seen that when, I believe they meant to say Indigenous peoples are filming, they have another cosmovision, other ways of telling their own stories. Have you noticed this or something different when they are filming?
That's a great question. It really depends on, you know, who you're interviewing and how they're telling you the story. And also, like, I don't know, how you build rapport, how you connect with the community, with the people you're interviewing, how much trust and understanding you establish with them. But also you need to have someone who can interpret a lot of these visions, especially when they're going into a more sort of spiritual, traditional sort of cosmovision approach. It's very, very important and something that when communicated needs to be well translated to audiences who otherwise wouldn't understand it, you know. So I've encountered a couple of situations like this with traditional healers and medicine men, and it's always been very inspiring, you know, when I understand it, and something that we thrive to to share with audiences and to communicate it so that it reflects exactly what the intention, respecting the message and the intention of the person who's sharing this message with us. So be very mindful about that.
Thanks, John. We have a question from Doba Loik Gildas, and apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name. They're asking, what are the recommendations, your recommendations regarding music to use for video productions? Are there any music resources to share?
Sure. So again, I mean, this would be part of a more sort of technical session that we hope to do in the future, that we can talk about the whole post-production process, right? Once you've filmed your story and now you're editing and adding graphics and adding music, we'll have a lot of resources and a lot of information to share with you about that. But we at Conservation International, we're always working with tight budgets. So we need to be very scrappy and frugal, when we think about our expenses and our costs in production. So there are some music libraries online, like Pond 5, which is not just music, but also stock footage, that you can license a music track for your video. And when you find that music track, you can download a comp. It'll have a watermark on it, so you can try it in your sequence, listen to it, see if it works with your images, and if it doesn't, you try another one. And once you found the right music track, then you can go back and purchase it and download it, and it'll have a specific license usage, because if you're doing something only for the internet, it might be cheaper than if you're doing something for broadcast television. The license would cost more. But it's hard to find free music, because at the end of the day, who composed the music? Probably a starving musician, or maybe not a starving musician after all, but somebody will want to get compensated for the usage of their music. So to find free music is sort of a shot in the dark. I'm sure there are resources out there. But again, we use Pond 5. We use also a very great music library online called Music Vine, V-I-N-E, musicvine.com, and another one called premiumbeats.com, premiumbeats, B-E-A-T-S.com. Again, this will be part of another session to talk about post-production and more technical stuff, but those are really good resources for music, for editing video.
Thanks, John. I think we have time for just one more question. And these resources, I dropped some links in the chat, but we will also send them afterwards in the resource guide. Hing Bunat from Cambodia, from OPKC Cambodia, is asking, what is the difference of capturing video during project activities and at the end of the project?
I'm sorry, Chloe, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, Hing is asking, what is the difference of capturing video during project activities and the end of the project?
Jumriap Suar, thank you, from Cambodia. So, look, sometimes I've had to go back for a second shoot to a location, because sometimes you don't have the time, or the weather didn't permit it. You're not able to get the images you wanted. Maybe the person was not available, or things always change during filming. So when you're doing your project activities, when you're filming your field project in action, always try to get as much footage as possible of everything in the field, close-ups, wide shots, details, the cars driving, the people walking, whatever they're doing. And then after the project, ideally you would want to go in with a shot list from the beginning. Make a list of the shots you need. That way you don't forget, and you can check them at the end of the day or as you're filming. And then sometimes you have to go back a second time, or add an extra day, or think creatively of what else you need to complement the images for your video. So I hope I'm answering your question. I'm not sure if that's what you were exactly asking, but that's kind of what I understood. You know, if you can leave more comments on the chat, I can look at them later and provide a bit more answers too.
Thank you, John. We had another question come in from Emily from Amazonia, Brazil, on difficulties that they're having on putting subtitles on videos and what platform can be practical in doing this. And so since we are out of time, Emily, we will make sure to share some resources that John shares with us or that we've compiled to support with this. With that said, I just want to thank you greatly, John, for your time today and for sharing so much of your experience and expertise with us. And I want to thank all the participants that have joined from all around the world today. I know it's late in some places, and for your excellent questions and discussion. As we mentioned at the beginning, this is the first of a series of trainings that we'll have, and we will definitely have time in future trainings with other presenters as well. And hopefully, John, if he can join us again, having Indigenous and local community storytellers tell us their experience, as you saw today, that they've produced really incredible videos as well. And lastly, the photo that was actually shown right before is a photo from the DGM photo contest. It was the first photo contest that we had, and the purpose of that is to promote Indigenous people and local community storytelling through photography. So we hope to have more opportunities like this in the future. And this is Bastian As's photo from Indonesia. And just to say thank you and congratulations to everyone here that I'm sure are storytellers in different ways. And have a great afternoon, evening, and morning.
Thank you, Chloe, and thank you all of you for your attention. I hope this was useful, and anytime you have additional questions or any support, I'm very happy to answer them and to chat with you more. Good luck, and go out there and tell really wonderful visual stories, and please share them. I want to see them. Okay, I hope to see you again. Thank you.